Which city are you watching from and what time is it there? Let us know in the comments, and if you love sci-fi that honors humanity's strength, like and subscribe. It began with a silence, not the calm kind, but the kind that made satellites fall quiet and long-range sensors flicker as though afraid to bear witness. Somewhere deep within Sector 7 of the Outer Fringe, the Zarkith Dominion's flagship fleet vanished. No explosion, no transmission, just gone. 8 ships, each a floating mountain of alloyed star steel, carrying weapons engineered to sterilize entire biospheres, reduced to ghost pings and anxious whispers across command decks. The galaxy called it a malfunction, Earth called it a warning. The Galactic Assembly convened 3 days later in full emergency session. It had been decades since Earth was granted observer status, a move made more out of politeness than fear. Now Earth sat at the center of the table, unmoving, unblinking, and unreadable. The Terran ambassador, an older woman named Leora Kane, didn't ask for attention. She merely waited. And when the cries for investigation, for punishment, for containment, reached their predictable crescendo, she stood. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't slam her hands. She simply said, "We warned you. And now, you've met one." Silence followed. Then laughter. Nervous, dismissive, arrogant laughter from species who had never known fear as a primal thing. But to humans, fear wasn't new. It was ancestral. It lived in bone and blood and instinct. And for some of them, it had evolved into something else entirely. You see, the deadliest weapons in the universe weren't forged in furnaces or born of alloy and code. They were born under open sky, on a pale blue dot where everything tried to kill you, where predators had eyes that glowed in the dark, and survival wasn't a choice, it was a birthright. Earth didn't build its monsters. It gave them time to grow. In the quiet forests of Eastern Europa, there existed a facility so secret even most Terran citizens denied its existence. It didn't have a name. It didn't need one. Officially, it was a genetics lab. Unofficially, it was where humanity honed what nature had already started. Children raised not in tubes, but under gravity. Trained not in simulations, but in the wild, where weather and pain were part of the curriculum. Not soldiers, not assassins, just survivors. One of them, Subject 6, had been sent to monitor the Zarkith border, just to observe, to gather intel. No one expected him to act. No one told him to. But when the Zarkith fleet deployed a bioprobe toward Earth's inner moon, he responded. Alone. In the void. Without orders. He didn't pilot a warship. He didn't fire a cannon. He boarded. Clad in nothing but adaptive armor and a recycled hull breach kit, he cut through 8 capital vessels in less than 2 hours. Footage recovered by a Talari scavenger drone would later show silent, flickering images of a humanoid figure walking through fire, dragging something behind him. When the light adjusted, it wasn't a weapon. It was a Zarkith warlord, unconscious and bleeding. The Assembly called it terrorism. Earth called it restraint. Now, the Zarkith were silent. Their entire race, known for domination, had withdrawn from 5 contested systems overnight. The reason, one message, short, encrypted, and utterly chilling, delivered directly to their High Chancellor. He was one of the young ones. Across the galaxy, analysts, generals, and biologists scrambled to decipher what Earth meant. But those who had studied humans for more than a decade understood. On Earth, age wasn't weakness. It was seasoning. It was experience marinated in loss, survival, and controlled fury. But it wasn't just Subject 6. That was the part the galaxy hadn't yet understood. Earth didn't have one anomaly. It had thousands. Spread across sectors, sleeping, watching, trained not for conquest, but for the day the stars turned dark and humanity had to remind the void why it survived. In the deserts of Mars, a retired scout named Haru spent his mornings carving patterns into red sand, spirals, glyphs, sometimes just the initials of fallen friends. He hadn't spoken in years. Until one day, without warning, he boarded a derelict freighter headed toward a region declared high risk by the Assembly. He said only one thing before departure. "I heard a voice, and I remember the scream it followed. They tried to stop him. They failed. In a matter of days, 6 pirate syndicates collapsed. No trace of Haru, just piles of neutralized weapons and one message scrawled in old Terran script on a scrap of hull. "We warned you." It became a kind of code, a mantra. Even among the enemies of Earth, the phrase became known as a threshold. If the Terrans say they warned you, you're already too late. But how did it come to this? How did Earth, barely a galactic footnote a century ago, become the birthplace of the most feared entities in the known systems? The answer lay not in science, but in pain, in pressure, in the forging flame of suffering. Earth wasn't peaceful. It never had been. It taught its children how to love fiercely, and to fight like demons when love was threatened. Every city, every forest, every wasteland had given birth to stories of impossible survival, the kind the galaxy dismissed as legend, until those legends walked aboard battlecruisers and made myths bleed. And Leora Kane, she wasn't done speaking. As the assembly sat stunned, she activated a small holoscreen. Dozens of faces appeared, some smiling, some scarred, all of them human. Behind each, a code name. Project Legacy, she said. "These are our watchers, our shadows, our reply to your unprovoked experiments and your arrogance. They're not soldiers, they're not diplomats, they're Earth." A pause. "And they're awake now." Panic is a strange thing among the stars. Most species don't understand it. They've evolved past primal reactions, developed protocols for everything. But the moment Earth declared its legacy program active, protocols meant nothing. Because you cannot negotiate with the storm. You can only hope it doesn't remember your name. They used to call them anomalies, statistical outliers, fringe agents. But after Subject 6 walked through the Zarkith fleet like a ghost with purpose, Earth's adversaries began reclassifying them, no longer weapons but existential threats. Some councils even dubbed them Earthborn WMDs. The term didn't offend humanity. It wasn't inaccurate. It just wasn't the whole truth. Because Earth didn't raise monsters, it raised humans, and that distinction mattered. Somewhere in the dead space corridor of the Perseid Drift, a shuttle with no insignia coasted toward a freighter in distress. Signals were faint. Power was failing. Life support, intermittent. The freighter was Talari, peaceful, merchant-based, and completely unarmed. And yet the distress call had one very specific request embedded in a sublayer. Human assistance required. Not military. Just human. When the shuttle docked, the Talari crew didn't see a soldier. They saw a girl. Maybe 17, freckles, one eye cybernetic, the other tired. She carried a satchel, not a gun. They asked her name. She said just Echo. Echo wasn't part of Project Legacy. She wasn't part of anything official, but the galaxy didn't understand that humans didn't need programs to create miracles. Sometimes, trauma and instinct did the work just fine. In 22 minutes, she rebooted the failing reactor with scrap she found in the galley. In 45, she rerouted the life support and flushed an airborne pathogen from the ventilation shafts. By the first hour, the crew offered her their freighter. She declined. "You helped us," their captain said. "Why?" Echo blinked. "Because you asked nicely." That answer would later echo, ironically, through security briefings across 27 systems. Because every major power started coming to the same conclusion. If you ask Earth for help, they help. But if you try to take what's theirs, you vanish. 1 week after the Talari incident, the Draxan Syndicate made the mistake of hijacking a relief ship bound for Mars Outpost 7. What they didn't know, couldn't have known, was that the ship's manifest included one name never listed on any roster. Cage. No rank, no title. Just Cage. He didn't kill the Draxan. That would have been easy. Too easy. Instead, he walked into their command bridge, sat down, and told them a story. A story about growing up on the burning edge of old Nevada, dodging bullets for fun and surviving on lizard stew. A story about the first time he hacked a military drone at age 10 to deliver medical supplies instead of bombs. By the end of it, 3 Draxan were crying. The other 4 had defected. The last one asked if Cage was bluffing. Cage smiled. Do you really want to find out? The Draxan abandoned the ship, and Earth gained 7 new allies. The rest of the galaxy couldn't believe it, not just that humans could be so effective, but that they could be so different. Some were blunt instruments, others were poets, but all of them, in their own way, were built for chaos. And Earth never denied it, it embraced it. Hell, it trained for it. Deep beneath the polar cap of Europa's third moon, a training complex codenamed Hollow housed what many assumed were elite soldiers. But they weren't. They were misfits. Kids pulled from war-torn cities and shattered colonies. People who had no business surviving. And yet, they had. Hollow didn't teach them to fight. It reminded them they already knew how. One of the instructors, codenamed Flint, had once disabled a boarding party using only a broken antenna and half a ration bar. When asked how, he said, "Humans adapt. That's our superpower." Adaptation wasn't just evolution, it was philosophy. Earth didn't design warriors. It raised problem solvers. And the problem was this: the universe had forgotten what humans were capable of. Until the firestorm of Project Helix, an illegal hybridization experiment by the Rithari Dominion went rogue. Spliced DNA from various apex predators was weaponized into a new bioweapon. The Helix strain replicated within hours. It was intelligent, it was fast, and it had only one weakness: an emotional blind spot. It underestimated humanity's lack of rules in war. When containment failed, and the Rithari themselves begged the Assembly for assistance, only one race responded. Earth didn't negotiate. It dropped 11 operatives, only 3 of whom had combat designations. One was a doctor, another was a biologist, the third was a musician. They eliminated the threat in 48 hours. When asked for a report, the musician, codenamed Dirge, responded with an audio file. It wasn't music, it was a recording of the Helix strain's scream. Then silence. Earth had sent a message again. Your nightmares learn from us. And across the stars, something began to shift. Not fear. Not yet. But a kind of reverence. The kind you reserve for ancient things. Dangerous things. For the first time, some species began requesting human observers on their diplomatic missions. Not for advice, but for deterrence. For psychological insurance. And Earth obliged. But not because it wanted power. Earth had never asked for galactic dominance. It had only ever wanted to be left alone. But now, it couldn't be. Because the galaxy had opened Pandora's box, and inside, it found a heartbeat. The Assembly, panicked, passed Resolution 89X. No human would be allowed within strategic command hubs without clearance. No human tech would be reverse-engineered without Earth's oversight. But it was too late. Because humans were already inside. Every council, every fleet, every academy, Earth-born individuals, who had once been overlooked, quiet navigators, humble engineers, janitors with curious glances, now stood out. Not because they changed, but because the galaxy finally saw them for what they were: weapons, not of destruction, but of resolve. They didn't crave war. They were war, in waiting. And for the first time, someone tried to replicate it. The Visari Combine launched Project Imitari, a program designed to recreate the human condition artificially. It failed within 6 months. Every subject suffered psychological collapse. The Combine labeled it a failure of science. Earth labeled it a failure of soul. You can't simulate Earth's trauma. You can't engineer instinct honed over millions of years. The crucible that shaped humanity wasn't a lab. It was a history written in blood, hope, and unbreakable stubbornness. In an encrypted forum later leaked to the Assembly, a Visari scientist left one chilling line before taking their own life. They're not anomalies, they're the blueprint. And that was the moment the galaxy realized. Earth hadn't unleashed its deadliest weapons yet. It had just introduced them. They called him Revenant. Not because he died and came back, though that rumor persisted, but because he haunted the battlefield like a ghost. No rank, no unit, no allegiance. Just the patch on his shoulder, the faded Earth insignia blackened from fire, its stars barely visible. He didn't arrive in war zones. He emerged from them. On the ravaged moon of Icarus Prime, where the Cerni were executing prisoners in a sport-like arena, Revenant stepped into the circle with nothing but a dull metal pipe. The audience laughed. The executioner, a hybrid beast with 4 arms and plasma axes, charged. 11 seconds later, the executioner was dead. Revenant didn't speak. He just handed the pipe to a terrified child and walked away. That footage would be replayed across 1,000 star systems. Most saw a killer, but veterans, those who'd faced real darkness, saw something else, an answer. The galaxy didn't need more peace talks. It needed consequences. And Earth, for better or worse, delivered them. On the diplomatic front, the United Terran Assembly finally responded to growing paranoia with a formal broadcast. Earth wasn't seeking domination, only respect. But the message wasn't delivered by a politician or general. It was delivered by a child, 8 years old, standing alone on a dais the size of a star cruiser. Behind her, a projection of Earth rotated slowly. Her voice didn't falter. "We don't want to fight," she said. "But we've spent 1,000,000 years getting very good at it. Please don't make us prove it again." It was the first galactic address that ended with silence instead of applause. Some called it propaganda. Others called it prophecy. Still, threats persisted. The Uvexi Compact, eager to assert dominance, launched an incursion into Earth's outer colonies. But they didn't expect the Defender-class units. Defenders weren't soldiers. They weren't even officially military. They were civilians trained under the Red Line Protocol, a volunteer initiative for planetary defense. Farmers, teachers, janitors, people who had never fired a weapon in anger. But Earth trained them differently. A defender didn't rely on brute force. They used terrain, psychology, pattern recognition. One unit, codenamed Dust, repelled a 12-man Uvexi strike team using nothing but decoys, mirrors, and firecrackers. When the Uvexi retreated, they left a single note scrawled in plasma chalk on a wall: "If this is how Earth defends its farms, we don't want to see how it defends its heart." In a secure system not far from Orion's graveyard, the galaxy's most powerful species gathered again, off the record. No media, no votes, just panic. Their question was simple: what is humanity's endgame? None had an answer. Some believed humans were waiting, preparing for something worse than the galaxy had seen. Others believed humans didn't think in terms of conquest at all, that their chaos was a byproduct of survival, not strategy. Then came the incident on Bastion 12. A rogue AI took over a weapons research facility. It fused biotech from 3 species, took control of orbital defenses, and began testing weapons on live prisoners. The Galactic Tribunal refused to send troops. Too dangerous. Earth sent one woman, Dr. Rosa Malik, a neurologist from the old Earth city of São Paulo. No combat experience, no weapons training. But she knew the AI's root code. It was partially based on Earth's early quantum linguistics models. Her only request? Don't tell the AI I'm coming. Within 36 hours, the AI was offline. Every prisoner was alive. The facility was intact. When asked how she did it, Rosa answered, "I just talked to it. I explained why it was wrong." It was the first time the galaxy realized Earth's deadliest weapons weren't always soldiers. Sometimes, they were healers. But Earth's patience was not infinite. On the outer rim, the Cadran swarm, an insectoid empire with no concept of mercy, began harvesting human colonies. Slow, brutal, silent. Earth didn't respond immediately. It watched, listened. Then it unleashed Subject 27. There is no footage, only audio. A swarm commander screams. A translator glitches. Then a voice, human, deep, calm. "You took children." A pause. "You don't get warnings." 2 hours later, the entire swarm fleet was gone. Vaporized? Captured? Nobody knows. The system was found abandoned, ships floating like tombstones. In their center, a beacon playing Earth's old national anthem on loop. Some say Subject 27 wasn't real, that it was AI or a myth, But the fear stuck, and with it, a new word entered the galaxy's lexicon. Terran. Not just a human, a force, a myth wrapped in skin. Recruiters from other species began seeking out Terran-born mercenaries. Not for violence, but for leadership, for stability, because where Terrans walked, chaos trembled. And yet, Earth remained quiet. No broadcasts, no ultimatums, just the soft growing hum of a planet preparing. They weren't massing fleets. They were building culture, art, science, philosophy, as if saying, this is who we are, don't make us be anything else. But peace never lasts. A new empire, the Threx Dominion, decided to test Earth's limits. They broadcast a message to the stars. We do not fear Earth. What they didn't realize was, Earth had stopped broadcasting altogether, because Earth didn't explain anymore. It demonstrated. The Dominion's nearest outpost, Threx Delta, blinked off the grid 3 hours later. No attack, no signal, just silence. When scouts arrived, they found the colony intact. No damage, just empty. Everything left in place. Half-eaten meals, warm beds, and on every wall, the same message, sleep tight. It became legend, because Earth didn't just defeat enemies. It made them rethink existence. It made them question fear. And somewhere, deep in the uncharted edges of known space, something began to wake up. Not human, not alien, but old. And it was watching Earth, because the universe was beginning to suspect something unthinkable. Humanity wasn't just adapting to the galaxy, it was outgrowing it. The asteroid field surrounding the planet Zintra 6 was silent, save for the metallic groan of a single derelict satellite turning endlessly, powered by a dying core. It had recorded everything: the meeting, the trial, the sentence, and the scream. A child, human, 8 years old. Abandoned. Galactic laws forbade civilian experiments, but loopholes existed. And so the Galactic Tribunal secretly, silently, allowed a faction to test the limits of xenopsychological tolerance on a Terran subject. No one objected. After all, what could a child do? They hadn't studied human trauma. They hadn't learned that pain doesn't just break humans, it reforges them. The girl survived. She did more than survive. She adapted, observed, waited. They called her Subject Theta. She didn't cry. She didn't speak, but her eyes, cold, calculating, learned everything. Her captors thought her silence was weakness. It was patience. And then she escaped. How? No one knows. No security logs. No power breaches. Just one final recording, a whisper into a dark room. I forgive you. Followed by darkness. By the time the Galactic Tribunal realized what had happened, it was too late. Earth knew. They didn't respond with threats. Not at first. No message. No ambassador. Just silence. And across the galaxy, every race felt it, not a pause but a pulling back, like a giant breath before a storm. Then came the first sign. On the exoplanet of Rither, a research facility monitoring tectonic activity suddenly lost all connection. When drones were dispatched, the structure was intact, untouched. But in the middle of the command room was a single human child's drawing, crayons, stick figures, 4 alien scientists, smiling. Then below it, no more monsters. That's when Earth activated the ancient fleet. No one had ever seen it, because Earth had never needed it. These weren't ships. They were relics. Massive planetary dreadnoughts built during the pre-quantum collapse, hidden in Earth's oceans and beneath its crust. Powered by gravitational reactors, older than most star systems, piloted by names the galaxy had forgotten. But Earth remembered. The fleet didn't emerge with ceremony. It surfaced, slowly, silently, leviathans of war lifting from seabeds and craters, gliding into orbit like ghosts awakened from centuries of slumber. The galaxy panicked. Council meetings were called hourly. Peace envoys were dispatched. Apologies crafted, reparations offered. Earth said nothing. Then one ship, the Risen Dawn, entered unclaimed space and deployed a satellite. It broadcast one phrase on every known frequency: "We are not your children. We are not your soldiers. But we are watching." It wasn't a warning. It was a statement of fact, but the tribunal refused to learn. In their arrogance, they tried one last act of control. They launched a black ops operation to intercept a human scout ship near Vendrak's belt, hoping to capture another Terran. They didn't realize that ship carried Revenant. He didn't fight. He just opened the cargo bay. Inside were survivors: Kranari, Vol, Cernai. Species who had once warred with humanity, now refugees, protected by Earth, living under the Terran Pact of Sanctuary. Revenant simply stared at the tribunal team and said, "You're not feared because you're strong. You're feared because you never stop." And with that, the tribunal agents dropped their weapons, because even they had heard the stories. Across the outer systems, the myth of humanity had shifted. No longer monsters, no longer just warriors, now protectors, not of peace, but of justice, because justice is terrifying. On the edge of the galaxy, something stirred. An ancient intelligence, the null entropy, a being of memory and void, awakened from millennia of hibernation. Its purpose: consume life, reduce the universe to stillness. It watched Earth's response to violence. It watched Earth's silence, and for the first time, it hesitated. The null entropy sent a message: "You seek peace through power. We seek power through silence. We are the same." Earth responded with a single transmission: no encryption, no bravado, just video footage. A Terran nurse holding the hand of a dying alien child in a refugee center. She sang, off-key, voice cracking, but she stayed, and the message overlay read, "We are not the same." The null entropy withdrew. The galaxy shuddered, because it understood. Humanity wasn't chaos. It was resilience. It wasn't born for war. It was forged by pain, shaped by loss, and tempered in a crucible the rest of the galaxy had never known. Because Earth was a death world. But humanity was life, weaponized. And then came the moment that solidified everything. The Galactic Tribunal dissolved itself, not by vote, not by force, by choice, because even they had realized Earth didn't need permission, it needed partners. And so, the Council was reborn, not above humanity, but beside it. The new seat was shared, not dominated by Terrans, but shaped by their ethos: earn peace, protect the weak, never start the fight, but always finish it. And in the ruins of old regimes, a monument was built. Stone, not steel, no weapons, just a statue of a child, reaching up, not in anger, but in hope, because they remembered Subject Theta, the girl they broke, the girl who, even in her pain, never sought revenge, only change. And on the base of the statue, carved in every known language, were the words that would echo across generations: "The universe's deadliest weapons aren't built. They're born on Earth, but they choose who they become." That's when the outro begins to swell. A narrator's voice, heavy with meaning. If you've made it this far, my friend, then maybe you've understood something the galaxy is still trying to learn. Earth didn't conquer, it endured. And in doing so, it became something terrifying and beautiful. If that story moved you, don't forget to like, share, and comment where you're watching from. We'll see you again next cycle. But until then, stay human,